Hey folks, it's Babbaginator. We're here in the long dark. We are streaming live from Toronto. That's right. I have successfully moved from Vancouver, BC to Toronto, Ontario, and have managed to get myself set up so I can stream again. So I'm very happy to be back. It's been a few weeks, so hopefully people haven't forgotten about us. Astrid's little quest. If you're new to this channel, we are doing our challenge. Roll with it. And we're currently day 1 of 2 at Crumbling Highway, then we're heading on to Desolation Point. It's kind of cold out there. See, we've picked up some coal from here. There's nothing we can study. Repairs are pretty much all up to date. We have our hammer. We don't have a hacksaw. We'll probably find a hacksaw in Desolation Point. No, it still sounds pretty bad out there. Let's do a little exploring. Honestly, I can't remember how much I've done with this already, but I don't think we went out to the ice. Did we?
I'm not sure I can carry much more.
Basement? I think we just stuck with the road. What do we have to eat? We don't have much to eat. Okay. But we don't have a hacksaw, so we can't really harvest anything. That kind of sucks. I'll rip in here. Oh, there is stuff out there. Tormuse! Great to see you. We're back. Successfully made it to Toronto. Successfully managed to get everything set up again so I could stream. But I will say it's been a little bit more of a challenge than I anticipated. I got here and finally got a desk and an office chair to work with, and then setting up my monitors, and I discovered one of my monitors gotten cracked in transit, and I was like, great. So I had to replace the monitor. Yep. Trying to think what else. I'm still way behind in furnishing this place. It's pretty empty. I mean, I need to probably buy a dresser or something for storing clothes other than just the closet, which is a little small. Think about a dresser to slide into the closet. It would be okay. Well, I mean, it wasn't a super pricey monitor, but I think the part that made me a little bit more annoyed was the fact that I tried to replace it with one on Facebook Marketplace, and so I have a rather small space to set up for the desk. There's like a little alcove in the room that feels pretty much like that's where the desk is supposed to go. So I was like, okay, I'll use that. And I measured it out, and it's like, okay, I have 2 monitors set up, and I don't have like gigantic monitors. I only have like 2 24-inch monitors. I'll just do that. So on Facebook Marketplace, I found someone who is in my neighborhood who was selling a 24-inch monitor for $50. And I thought, okay, that's very reasonable. I'll go out and do that. And I thought those were just shoes. It's okay. So I went out, got the monitor the other night, and brought it back. And then that's when I realized they said 24-inch, but actually it was a 22-inch. And it was just tiny compared to what I needed. I was like, yeah, so $50 out the window. I'll see if I can figure out another use for that small monitor, but it's not really, like, it's too small to really be useful for my usual two monitor setup. So then I ended up just caving in, and I found a refurbished one on Amazon that was under $100 before tax. Missed it. And so basically, like a nicer monitor, but on a big discount. And I took that instead. And it arrived. And so now I'm working with that. But, interesting problem. Where the mount is set up on that one is different from the other monitor. So now they're not level. It's very annoying. Okay, let's see here. We're supposed to leave on day 18. We are still not on day 18. Oh, okay, so let's see. I owe 2 shoutouts here. One to Tormuse. And I guess it's less of a shout out, more of a thank you. And 2.
3.
And a big thank you to EG.
2.
We're all going to roll. Heads are going to roll.
1.
Wolves are going to roll.
Happy terraformation.
This looks like a bad idea.
New Flipper
Wind's
received.
picking up.
Extraction platform.
Let's get away from wolves. Yeah. welcome to early time. This is pretty close to my old time, except for I'm on the East Coast now. So I started a little bit after 8 o'clock. I will probably go for about 2 hours, wrap up around 10 something. Still have to be up in the morning to go to work, so... Yeah. Yeah, hopefully this is helpful for people on the East Coast, and who knows what we'll get in terms of numbers. It's never really been about the numbers, but it's been about the money. No, it's not been about the money either. So yeah, I had this big adventure where I drove from Vancouver, BC to Regina, Saskatchewan. So that was 3 days. It actually turned into 4 days because the day I was supposed to leave Calgary to go to Regina, there was a huge storm in Regina, and all of southern Saskatchewan, and the highways were in terrible condition, especially the ones going into the city. So they closed all the highways going into the city, and I ended up staying in Medicine Hat instead. So I drove like half of the distance and then stayed at a friend's place I hadn't seen for a few years, and he and his family hosted me, and I stayed there. It was nice. And then I drove in the next day, and the roads were much better. And then I spent almost a week, about 4 or 5 days in Saskatchewan, and it was bitterly cold and snowed a lot. And then the snow was gone, and it was just bitterly cold. Let's see here. Put it here. Yeah. So then I went from Regina, and I drove for 3 days to get to Toronto, and I picked the worst possible time to do that. When I left Saskatchewan, it was absolutely frigid, like minus 30s, minus 40s, and Manitoba was equally bad. It was so cold that when I got to Brandon, Manitoba, I pulled in for lunch, and when I got out of lunch and tried to start my car would barely start it. It didn't start at first and then finally started, and the engine light was on, so I had to take it to, luckily, Brand's large enough that there were multiple mechanics and auto repair shops in the area. So, why are we getting all these crappy torches? Let's try this again. And so, yeah, one of the mechanics took pity on me and fit me in, took a look at it, and said, at first the diagnostics were saying one thing. And he looked at it and said, hey, he was an older guy, he turned to the young guys, and he said, did you guys check the battery? And they said, no, you notice the voltage is really low. I said, oh. So all the false, computer signals were basically because of the low battery. So,
This pack is getting kind of heavy.
okay. We are still on 17, so we have another 24-hour rest, or no, a little bit more time here. Yeah. So he, I ended up having to replace the battery because the previous battery was dying. And he said, if it hadn't been for the extreme cold, it probably would have been perfectly fine. But because of the extreme cold, the part of the battery that was failing was now, obviously failed. And so, so it was lucky for me that it got dealt with there. So anyways, cost me a couple hours drove into, where was my first stop? So I drove all the way across Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and then stopped in, what was that? I'm going to look it up on my Airbnb list. Past trips. I stayed in Dryden. That's where I was. So I stayed in Dryden, and then I drove all the way to Wawa, which is a really strange name. And I left Wawa, which is up like next to a lake and up in the hills or mountains, a little bit more north. And I left at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday. And if you're in Ontario, and especially in Toronto, you know what Sunday was like. Not this past Sunday, the previous Sunday. The Sunday when there was that huge snowstorm, right? Yeah. That broke all the records. Yeah, that's exactly the one. I drove into the aftermath of that on Sunday night because I left Wawa at 6:30 in the morning in the pitch black on an undivided highway. So that means like there's nothing between you and the other cars passing the opposite direction. And it's pitch black. And there suddenly were snow flurries up there, and big gusts would blow the snow off of the trucks going by and then just blanket it would cover your entire field of view so you couldn't see a thing. And it was pretty scary and stressful to kind of spend 2 hours navigating that before I could get down far enough and the sun had risen that like I had visibility again. And then it wasn't too bad. And then by about Barrie, like the roads started to get bad again. And then when I got into Toronto proper, it was like, wow, this is awful. It's like, I mean, I had snow tires on, but it was still like, I'm an experienced winter driver and I had snow tires on, and it was absolutely miserable. My car, I think part of the problem must have been that because of all the wet snow and how cold, like the fluctuation in temperatures, I think my tires had started to build up a layer of ice. And so they just didn't have, like, it was inconsistent in terms of my grip. So there were places where I was driving along and I could tell that it was not really, the tires weren't fully gripping. And it was like, this is bad. These are snow tires. They're meant to do this, but they're clearly driving for 12 hours on them, not good. Even kicking the snow out from underneath the tire wells and trying to like keep them, in good condition. It was just like, yeah, it was too much. So I limped. I got into my Airbnb, and of course, as soon as I arrived there, I discovered I had a new problem, which was that the Airbnb was on this tiny street that was absolutely snowed. Like there was just a tiny lane through. It was the only part that was clear. And I booked the Airbnb because there was a garage I could park my car in, because I was going to be there for 5 days while I was doing my apartment hunt. And so, so I looked, and it's like, there's no way into the alley. It is absolutely just way too full of snow. And I don't know which garage it is, but the access was in the alley in the back. And it was like, I'm not going to be able to do this, am I? And so I called my estate agent, or not my estate agent, my leasing agent who I was working with to help me find a place. And he had said, like, if there's anything else that you need help with, let me know. And so I said, hey, I'm just arrived in town. I can't even park at where I'm supposed to stay. What do you recommend? Are there any underground parking lots that I can use in the area that aren't going to be way too expensive? And so he recommended, a couple of Green Pea parking lot things. And I found one that was like a 10-minute walk. And I did that. And I ended up having to do that for 2 nights before the alley was finally cleared enough that I could get my car through to the parking spot. But that was quite the adventure. Okay, so 17. Oh, our problem is we need to figure out how to feed ourselves. Do we eat the last of our cattails? I think we might. The Baba vending machine in the mines? Yeah. But yeah, so in the end, once I got here, I had a very pleasant. I stayed in Little Italy for 5 days, 5-6 days. I guess it was 6 nights I stayed there, and
Soon.
I quite enjoyed the neighborhood in terms of restaurants. Restaurants were great, and there were 2 really good bookstores. We have to read poetry. Let's see. I should have set aside where my poetry books are. Hold on a second. Let's see if I can do that. Let us see what we got here. I may have to cheat and pull up some digital copies because I forgot. I have to figure out where I put the hard copies for things. Oh yeah, in the meantime we should probably see what we get. Bone chooser include. Okay, so it's from Babbage's Dream. Books. Load. Okay, let's see, what page was that on? Include. So we're going to, as is custom, we're going to read a poem that has been requested, and we kind of chose one from out of my own second book. My second book of poetry, Babbage's Dream. Normally I would hold this up at this point, but actually my hard copies are tucked away in a box, and I haven't actually bought a bookshelf yet to stick them on. So yeah, so we're a little disorganized, but I'll read the poem, and if you want to find more about Babbage's Dream, you can check out there. Okay. Include. Oh, and this is part of a series of poems that take programming terms and reinvent them as poetry. So they are in a sense, defining or explaining the concept or enacting the concept of the command or the term, but at the same time, they're also kind of a wider ranging, contemplation about the term as it operates in English and as it operates like in my own life, like what associations I make with it. And then it probably also ties in with the circumstances of working in the computer industry. Include. Call and will appear. A strange assembly of characters gathered in the library space like ghosts, or around a makeshift table formed of a door, a sawhorse, and 2 filing cabinets laid prone on the floor. Each of us in a class of our own, our names and histories kept to ourselves as if to preserve a little corner away from the stern gaze of those who plod the aisles, worrying their ways back to distant desks and offices with views of the city we scarcely know. Our lives spent instead engaged in the work of the mind, the transcribing of one logic into another. We are refugees of sorts, castaways who wash up unexpectedly on the same shore, Our new world, nothing more than the cobbling together of the remains of others, warehouses filled with empty bookcases, stained whiteboards, vending machines, the dull hum of the air conditioning fans whirring their lullabies overhead. All around us, cast-off machines, broken keyboards and mice, a cornucopia of wires and the low, swinging bulbs that in the dark seemed to form a constellation of tiny, nameless stars. How they hang there above our heads, faltering, holding on, everything waiting for some final revelation to make itself useful, to give itself a place to go after the power goes out, after there's nothing left to burn within. In the halls, marshaled in a gallery of the disconnected and unstable, every heart that we pass is as inextinguishable and unknowable as our own. So, a lot of this poem references the time that I worked, when I first started working as a computer games programmer. I was working for a company called Knowledge Venture, which did educational games for kids. Most famously, they worked on the Jumpstart line. So if you ever had grade-based learning games as a kid and played like Jumpstart Second Grade or Jumpstart Advanced, Second Grade Advanced, or what was it? Like, there were all sorts of like different, grade-based things. And they'd have like a series of, it was kind of hub and spoke. There was like some central scene that you arrived at, and then you could go off and do these different activities and kind of come back. And then it also tried to track your performance in these different things. And it wouldn't produce necessarily a report card, but it kind of like gave you some sort of an evaluation or a sense of progress, right? So that was like the company I worked for. And at the beginning, it was just out of being, it still had the startup feel, even though it's been for years not a startup. But it was in a warehouse, and like it was very much like this describes. There's like, we didn't really have cubicles. We just had like designated areas with like these makeshift desks, and some partitions, but with empty bookcases, right? And it was kind of this ghetto town, this shanty town of sorts, right? Wild West almost. And so there's very much like all these cast off things, and we were just kind of dwelling amidst it, working. And that kind of contrasts with like what happened to the company, where we got purchased by a very large company and moved into like a much fancier location and consolidated with another educational company, and we all got folded together. And in that situation, we were in a building, and there were multiple floors that Vivendi Universal Games, that was our parent company, they had multiple floors in there, and so there was a lot more separation. Instead of this flat experience from the beginning, we suddenly had all these layers of management that were physically separated from us, and they would descend from their towers down to us and try to dictate to us, even though they didn't always understand what we were trying to do. So I think like that's kind of, the contrast that's in here. And then at the heart of it is like include is a call to the compiler to include the contents of an external file or code library that comes from someplace else into the main body of the code. And for many of us as programmers, that's kind of what it was, is we were being called in from whatever life we had lived previously, and we were included within that strange community of misfits, right? It's kind of misfit island, right? And we're all there, cast off. And at the same time, we're surrounded by these things that remind us of sort of the fragility, the ephemerality, the short-livedness of a lot of this type of technology. So for all the things that were on the verge of breaking down and disappearing, including the programmers, there was still some sort of a kinship that we felt like we were a part of something together. So That's the behind the scenes to the poem. Thank you for reading. And it even included a vending machine. Look at that. Go team. Okay. Bedroll. Will it let us sleep anymore? No. Oh, cabin fever risk. Oh no. Should we have slept in the cave? Or are we just starting again?
Now. Where can I find something to eat?
So I have ended up in a rather ridiculous place for my apartment. I am right in the heart of downtown on this 26th floor in a corner unit. So I have this amazing view. And it was, I mean, it's simultaneously not cheap, but also not as the top end of what's out there. But it was more than what I had planned to spend initially. But the more I looked, the more I realized it's like, unless you have the luxury of having, a partner or a person that you trust as a roommate,
Damn it.
living on your own, you're either going to live cramped or you're going to live, you're going to end up having to spend a lot. So I try to find something in between where it's like,
I wonder if I can drop any of this gear.
but I have to say, when I saw the view and I saw sort of the proximity to grocery shopping and things like that, I thought, no. And it's really, really, really like convenient for transit. I was like, it's within half an hour of work. It's totally,
Come on, little fire.
in fact, if I wanted to walk, it would be about 40 minutes. So I was like, you know what? That's actually, I could live with this. Okay, we are officially day 18. We are at 2 out of 2. So that means basically we are all set to leave here. We just have to be out of here by midnight, and that's not a problem. TP, we do not know how long we have to be here.
I'm not sure I can carry much more.
Work has been good. I just kind of feel a little bit. I don't know. It's hard. There's like so many things that I really need to learn. And they're very patient. I talked to one of my coworkers, and she said, be patient with yourself. It takes about a month to kind of figure things out here. So. Okay, let's see. What do we want to pitch here? Okay. Okay, here we go. Head over to the other side, and we are going to roll. Find out how long we're going to stay. So yeah, if you're new to this challenge, so Roll With It is basically an Interloper challenge in which every time we start in a new region, or every time we enter a new region, a new region simply being defined as like different from where we were, then we have to roll a die, and it tells us how many days we're going to spend there. We cannot leave early, and we cannot leave late. So if it says, 7 days, it means that we have to spend 7 days, and then on the 7th day, whenever the date turns over in our journal, then we have to be out of there by midnight. It's done. So, a huge factor in the success of these challenges, trying this particular challenge, is the spawn time. So when did you spawn into the world? Because that will actually mean it impacts like how much time you have before it's too late. So if you spawn in the morning, that's great because you have the whole day to get out. But if you spawn at dusk, just before darkness, you cannot leave before the date turns over. So you're stuck there until dusk or later. But when you're trying to leave at that time, you have just such a short window of time to cross the map. Or, basically you have to plan on being there a day early. Yeah, it's messy. Okay.
I wonder if I can drop any of this gear.
Okay, time for the big roll. So Desolation Point is a major region, so we roll a d10. And we get a 6. Okay. So we are going to be here. Zero and 6. And that means 24. Ooh. So the first night I moved into this apartment, all I had, other than the stuff that was in my car, was one of those mattresses in a box. So a memory foam mattress that I had ordered which had arrived, and I had to bring it over to the new apartment. I had to expand it. So it took me, I waited a day before I could actually move in to sleep. And, yeah, and that was, I had no bed frame, so I was basically sleeping on the ground on this mattress. You know, and most of my stuff was still packed. I was still unpacking things. What's up with these people? Don't they know to leave us alone? Okay, I want to ban. So even now, I have a bed and a bed frame, a desk, and an office chair. That's all the furniture I have. Like, I don't have a sofa, I don't have a coffee table, I don't have a TV stand or a TV, I don't have a kitchen table or kitchen chairs. The only chair in the apartment right now is the office chair. So. Yeah, I know. I mean, it is kind of dumb. It's like, hey, can you help me scam you? Yeah. Where are you, buddy? He's eating someone. Maybe a rabbit? Did he get a deer already? Where are you, buddy? Oh, he's over here. He ate the rabbit and ran away. Okay, that's good enough. I wonder why we could pick it up. Usually it's
I'm
ruined.
not sure I can carry much more.
What's on here? Nothing. We picked them up and he's worthless? Okay. So. Amazing disappearing rabbit. Okay, we've got about an hour left in my stream. Not doing a super long streams for the first little while because I still have to figure out I still have to get adjusted to work schedules and sleeping schedules and things like that.
Man, this pack is getting kind of heavy.
So, and it turns out that we can, for this short time, until things get really firmed up by administration, there's a certain amount of flexibility about working from home. So, I haven't decided yet if I will do that or how often I'll do that, but I might do that occasionally. I think it largely will depend on what kind of clearly defined projects or things I could work on that I could do from home. Like if I just simply say I'm going to work from home and I don't have anything to work on at home, then that doesn't really make any sense to anyone.
I wonder if I can drop any of this gear.
Yeah, let's see what we got here. Where is everyone? Do you see the bear? Oops, why did I do that? Living dangerously. Car battery. Do not need.
I'll take it.
Oops.
Well, this stuff will come in. Thank you.
The Tar News, you're currently in Toronto, right? Or in the general area?
not sure I can carry much more.
Ooh. Lifetimer. Lifer. For Toronto. Are you pretty familiar with the downtown area? Have any recommendations for food places I should check out? I'll eat almost everything and anything. But I do like occasionally going out and trying different places. Nothing like break the bank, but, you know, like I don't want to spend over $50 on a meal, right? I mean, who am I trying to impress? Myself? I don't know. No, I think, like, realistically, you know, my target is to spend, like, under 20 or under 30. And most of the time, if I can, I try to find something that's, like, you know, in the under 20 bracket. Which is why I usually end up cooking for myself. But, keep doing that.
Man, this pack is getting kind of heavy.
But I found, for instance, like when I was staying in Little Italy, I really liked this Indian place called Minot. Because almost all their entrees were really inexpensive, but the quality was exceptional. It was like one of the best Indian restaurants I'd eaten at, and then most of their dishes were like ran between $10 and $18. And a lot of, you know, and a number of specials where you could just order something and it would cost you like $10 to $14. But where I live right now, which is kind of, I guess you could call it like Church and Young-ish area. There's like grocery stores and, you know, fast food places, and then like a Subway. And then there's a bunch of other smaller places that I haven't had a chance to check out yet. Oh, and the other thing I still have to figure out, which is kind of a really important thing, is I need to figure out where I can find a group of people to play D&D with. Or to run a D&D game. I don't necessarily want to, like, join
I'm not going to be able to carry
one of
this
those
load.
adventure league, run out of a gaming shop, constant turnover type of games. And like, they serve a purpose for some people, but I would rather be DMing a game that was ongoing or playing the game that was ongoing with the same people every week. So it's different when you're a graduate student. You can always post on the graduate student forums and advertise that way and find someone.
Use this.
But as, you know, faculty or staff, it's kind of different. And I tried joining a couple Facebook groups, but at least one of them seems like it's really just meant for one particular store to recruit people to come and play their on-site game, which will charge a little bit of money to play in. Which, I mean, that's their prerogative, and again, it'll meet some people's needs. But it's not really what I'm looking for. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily am looking for, quantity like a buffet. Because I've been trying to trim back, like, yeah, it's not. If I get a larger portion, it's because I'm planning to split it and have half now and half later. So it becomes 2 meals, and then I can justify it. But buffets kind of work counter to that because there's an expectation you just sit there and eat it all, which is not really the healthiest thing to do, even if it gives you a wide variety of things to sample. I still occasionally would go to a buffet, but it's not really high on my list of things to do. I might do a buffet if it's for a type of food that generally I would go out with a group of people in order to, eat family style and have a bunch of different dishes circulating. But if I don't have that family or circle of friends to do that with, and I still want to have a variety of dishes instead of just one dish, then yeah, I guess a buffet would make sense for those types of situations. So close. Okay, so that was 45. 3. Ah.
I think I can use this. Oh, lucky day.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the advantage if you live in the area, you've built up your circle of friends and family to go and do stuff with. Yeah. When you're a newcomer, your choices are sit around at home, wishing that you had friends to go out and eat with, or go out and eat and try to make friends. How are we doing here? About 15 minutes left. As if we'll ever find any shells. Lots of bouncing. Hmm. Yeah, maybe take a quick look at that. Yeah, I also could look into some meetups as well and see if there's any meetups that I want to be a part of. So let's see. Snakes and lattes. There's a few locations. A couple at least. Canada, Toronto, College and Annex. Little Italy. So again with Little Italy. And Annex is where? Bloor Street in Koreatown. I can't tell which one's closer to where I live. College Street looks a little closer, I think. Yeah, when the real question will be, is it convenient by transit? It's a bus ride. Looks like I can take one bus to get there. Bus, it's not too bad. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I'll have to see. Okay, I think what we should plan on doing here is stay overnight and then go around and scrap a bunch of things in the morning. Although we may need to go down anyways and boil some more water. And there we are.
Come on, little fire. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. It might be a starting point, like for
Perfect.
seeing if I can find other like-minded friends or at least acquaintances who might be from there. See if there's a group that's interested in D&D. And one of the things I need to figure out too is where to play. One thing I have considered is, do I look for a campus group or do I look for a group that's closer to where I live? Campus group, I would be interested in playing. I would play with graduate students and, a mix of graduate students and faculty. But I don't know if that really happens at all. I know as a graduate student, there's definitely more willingness to play with other graduate students. Faculty tend to be busy. Or they don't want to socialize. At least not with the students. So. Yeah, so I think campus, well, convenient for after work is not convenient in terms of just the, um, yeah, it's just need a different location. Until I get furniture in my apartment, it's not really, conducive to hosting anything. Everyone wants to sit on the floor, right? On the floor, on the laminate floor. Plus, there's the whole weirdness of having people you don't know over for the first time. Having like a third space, like the gaming shops, does kind of make sense. Yeah, I'll let you know. We'll have to figure out what I can do. I think what I'd probably try to do is find. So, like, my building does have a gaming room or a rec room, but the rental charge on it is a bit pricey. Um, and for doing it on the regular, I think that would be just too much. So I have to do some research about where a good, convenient to me, convenient to other people type of place would be that could run games. Public libraries aren't bad. If you can rent the space at the public library, sometimes they'll let you just reserve the space for free. Universities aren't bad. It's just not always convenient for everyone. So, or people have like weirdness about like who's at the table. So, I say we're still canopy there.
This pack is getting too heavy to carry.
Okay, what do we got here? There was like an escape room back in Saskatchewan, in Regina, that I used to, when I was living in there. I made friends with the owner, and he basically said we were welcome to run D&D games there if we bought our food there, from the snacks. And so so that was great. Very inexpensive solution. And one of the people that worked there was also one of the players, so that was really convenient. Let's see, what are their hours? So I think the problem with the library idea is the hours. I don't think they stay open as late. Let's see where I'm at right now. So yeah, so to 8:30 p.m. for the City Hall branch. What's another one? You know what would be convenient? I live really close to TMU. It'd be really convenient if I found someone who was working there, a student there, who could use their facilities. And it's pretty centrally located, and campus stays open until late. The library stays open until late. Yeah. That's what I need to find. I need to recruit a TMU student or TMU faculty. That's the secret plan. Let's see, what else can we do? Yeah, so apparently the public libraries are going to close too early. So unless I start games really early in the evening, which is a possibility, it just means I'd have to rush back from work. What part of the city are you in, Tormuse? What neighborhood are you in? I'm in Garden District. Close to TMU. That's my neck of the woods for now. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Oh, I see it. Yeah. 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 So, yeah, that would definitely be more of a commute for you. So I think it would largely depend on day of the week and time.
I could eat a horse. That sounds like so.
Another option is to run some online games, and then I really could just find players from wherever. But it kind of defeats the purpose of making, like, building a social network within the city. Okay, we need to find some things to scrap.
Can you eat trees? I can barely walk with this much gear. I never thought I'd be dying from starvation.
Okay, let's see how we're doing with time. Another half an hour, maybe. We've got lots of metal now. I swear we left that somewhere. Hmm. Oh, starting to get sleepy. It's still gusty out there.
I'm not going to be able to carry this load for much longer.
I'll make it the full 2 hours. I might have to pull it early. Yeah, one of the struggles I'm having right now at work is because right now they haven't really assigned me anything other than a lot of reading. I'm just staring at a screen most of the time, reading tutorials and reading, guides and reading all these other things. It's just so incredibly boring. I just keep nodding off, and then I have to get up and force myself to move around and do something for a little bit and then come back to it. It's just so boring. But it's all stuff you have to know because there's so much you have to know. Because you just don't know what kind of questions you're going to get and what kind of problems are going to show up.
This pack is getting too heavy to carry.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, being sleepy. Sleepy. And we are, how many days in now? 19, so we made it 1 day. We've done 2 days on the stream. Ugh. No, it's not that. It's just like it's been a long day, and instead of eating the lunch I packed, I went out to the food truck and got food, which was tasty, but probably too many carbs, and now I'm like all sleepy. Yeah, I got problems now. That's a cabin fever risk.
I can barely walk with this much gear.
Yeah. But we need the right kind of cave. One that doesn't have a bear. It's probably the bear cave. Wasted 2 matches. That really was a waste. Okay. So, as promised, I did stream tonight. I have not figured out my streaming schedule yet, so it will be a little bit random for the next couple weeks as I sort out how much time I need to rest between streams. You know, if I'm really gung-ho and want to be online every week, every day, or if I want to, go back to like how I was usually 3 times a week. 3 times a week does give me some time to fit in D&D and other things and be a more rounded human being, so I do like that as an option.
I'm not going to be able to carry this load for much longer.
Actually, let's see here. Wool. No, we're good. I'm happy with what we got. Yeah, I'm back. I am probably not going to be streaming for too much longer tonight. Because I am feeling pretty tired. It was a long day at work. Ooh. Okay. Ooh.
This'll come in handy.
Yeah, I'm really getting tired. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll be smart and Sleepy, sleepy, sleepy. Okay. We'll leave and re-enter.
This pack is getting too heavy to carry.
Okay. I think we're going to call it here. Let's read a little poem, and then we're going to wrap up and raid someone. Poem chooser. Double. We could choose something else from the same book, or we could choose. Wow, we just did that. Oops. Okay. Yeah, we could do kite flying. So this is from my first book of poetry, The Lost Country of Sight, winner of the Philip Levine Prize in 2007. And we're going to read a poem that is called Yeah, we'll do kite flying. 63. Okay, so this is entitled Kite Flying. This is from Lost Country of Sight, published by Anhinga Press in 2008. Kite Flying. Late summer, when the winds blew hard, I would blend into the sand, while my father stood at the edge of the beach watching the kite rise against the dark pines, and the line which tethered it to his hands became invisible in the half-light of dusk. How it pulled heavenward into the insubstantial blue, or circled, twisting in the breeze, falling, then rising again, always beyond reach. And he would stand gesturing, as if calling a stray dog home, or a cat from a tree, a secret spell, something only he knew, to waken the creature in the sky, to send it running out to sea like an angry pike on a line, then return, exhausted, to his hand. And when the winds struck, it could seem as if the whole kite would burst with longing to leave the earth. What an old song this is, what flies above our head like a banner, a wish for the one who never comes home. There we go. So kite flying, I've talked about this before in the past, so I'll kind of give an abbreviated version of this discussion. So partly it is an image, of something from childhood. When we lived out in Vancouver, and my father, sometimes we'd go out to the beach because we live close to campus, and we'd fly kites, and I was terrible at it. So sometimes we just watch people flying kites, and I remember just like that quietness of all your attention focused up in the sky on this thing that gets further and further away, yet tethered to one person's hand, and and just trying to steer it, and how clumsy I was, and then my father just seemed to have a better ability with it. I don't think he was ever an expert, but he just seemed to know what he was doing. And there's this aura, this air of quiet confidence and stability that comes from that. And I think like the undercurrent, no pun intended, in here is, it's we, the children, are the pikes or the fish on the line, always running as far as we can, testing our limits, and then finding ourselves still wound in, caught up, eventually carried home. There's, I don't know, I found it really compelling to write about it. And so, and how, and in the end, there's always, with these memories, being reconciled with, losing my father by the time this book was finishing up. It's the sense of absence that kind of grows out of that too. All this tension, all this yearning, and then also there's this absence. So, yeah. Okay, thanks for joining in tonight. We are going to find someone to raid and we'll pick up from there. I will be back later this week. I'll probably take tomorrow night off and maybe I'll stream on Friday. We'll see. What am I looking at here? Oh, I want to know who is up streaming that we could go visit. Where's my long dark? No, Hyperman's up. Okay, I'm going to visit Hyperman. No, this is, Okay, let's see. Oh, you want to hydrate? We'll get the hydrate on EG. One Baba block to go. Baba block, block, block. We will be back again soon. Okay, off we go. See you guys later.